Hi, it's Govinda Singh 1984, Governor of 84 Aria of OSNST Limited, and something's been playing on my mind, just a scenario. So I wanted to do a quick blog to just share my opinion and get off my chest. So the scenario is, did he deserve it? Now, what do I mean by did he deserve it? I'm going to give you two scenarios, two mafia bosses, and you decide as the listeners, the viewer, if you think someone deserves it or not. So the first mafia boss, you could say, is a bully. He sells heroin, crack, ice, and he doesn't care if it's a teenager he sells it to. He doesn't care what method the customer, the punter, uses, oil injection. As long as they've got the money and they're willing to pay the price for what he's got, he's going to sell it to them. And he also a bully, like when he goes to the park, he starts on kids, he beats people up just to, stamp his authority that he's not someone to be fucked with, not someone to be messed with. He's very confrontational, and if he goes to the pub, he always just wants to beat someone up just for the sake of people knowing that he's a hard nut. He has a crew that when they see school children with their phones or vulnerable people with their phones, he snatches their phones, he takes their phones, he robs people, he takes their gold chains, he takes their valuables. If people, customers or drug addicts have been burglaring people, mugging people and stolen to feed the habit and give him stolen money from stolen goods to pay for their drugs, he doesn't care. And he's just a nasty fucker. And when people come around, they tuck their chains and they put their phones away. When he comes around, when they're in their park, they get frightened, and they're just scared shitless when he comes around. So that's the first boss, the first gangster boss. The second mafia boss is someone who hates heroin, but they've come to the conclusion that you have to regulate and tax heroin. And the second mafia boss, the Montani, you could say, is someone who is like Carlito Briganti from Carlito's Way, the film. Very cool, calm-headed, not hot-headed at all, very calm and collected. And he has rules and regulations to when he sells drugs. Firstly, he does not sell to minor children, 14, 15, out of the question, 16, out of the question, absolutely not. He has a strict regulation that he only sells to people who are 18 years and older. He does not push, his views and opinions regarding heroin is the older gangsters from the 1990s and the 1980s who are too far gone off the dreaded foil and injection methods of consuming heroin. Things just let them phase out, just let them slowly carry on, continue as they were, slowly phase out. There's no helping some people. If they're young and got children from the new generations, then the foil and injection, they're going to have a battle on their hands to get clean for the sake of their children. But if they're too far gone in the older generations, so let them slowly phase out, let them smoke it in their foil, let them inhale it through the foil, let them inject it, let them just slowly phase out. But he has a zero tolerance policy of anyone trying to push foil and injection on the new younger generations. He has a policy never provide it to the new younger generations in the pure powder form ever, to reduce the risk of it being put in foil and injection. Now, in regards to the tobacco and Whistler method of smoking heroin, providing you are 18 years and older, and you have ganja, and he laces the ganja for those who want it laced, and they fund it out of their own pocket. So this is his regulations. Never get high in the morning. Don't start your day with the zoot left over from the night before, because it's going to be a cloudy day. You're going to fuck off for the rest of the day. Never smoke in the morning, never smoke in the afternoon. Be productive, work hard, go to a professional paying job, do your work, be productive. And when you finish work and you come home, providing you're 18 years and older, and your kids have got food on the table, they've got clothes, there's electric working in the house, you've got heating and plumbing in the house, and food in the fridge, and all your responsibilities have been taken care of, if you want to unwind and sit there in the back garden and smoke your ganja laced in heroin to relax and listen to your tunes, as long as you've paid for it at your own profit, he provides heroin laced in ganja laced heroin for the older, 18 years old and older. In regards to school, he says he's like a mafia boss who's also like a mafia teacher, who's the head of a study center tutorial. And he says to the school teachers of the local schools, he has a liaison with them, a dialogue. He goes, if they're destined for the underworld and they're disrupting class, send them to him. Let the kids who are academically capable and have potential to study in peace without distractions, but if they're destined for the underworld, send them to him. And they send them to his study center, and he makes sure that they brush up on the numeracy skills, the literacy skills, and this basic day-to-day science. And he says to the 16-year-old, and he says it to the mainstream schools, when they're 16 years old, but their build is out of a 21-year-old, and they are very violent, he's going to allow them to smoke ganja. Not during lessons, not after lessons, not during school time, but afterwards to unwind. He may let them smoke during school hours, study center hours, if they're feeling aggressive, if they've had a bad day and they might potentially be violent, just to relax their blood clot. So ganja for 16 years and older, providing they funded it out their own pocket. And just to calm them down, so he'd rather have them mellow rather than being aggressive and violent. He has zero tolerance for anyone smoking, pushing piff, cannabis, the mutated hybrid plant on 16-year-olds, because their brains are still developing, and if they put that amount of chemicals in their body, it can stunt their brain and they can have a bad reaction. So his views regarding the mutated hybrid plant, you have to be 18 years and older to smoke that, to make a decision to smoke that, because you could have a very bad negative side effect of smoking it once in your life, can be ruined forever. But in regards to ganja, the weed, what the Rastafarians smoke, what the Shiva Shankar Sadhus smoke in India, the natural herb, he doesn't mind his 16-year-old study center students smoking that, provided they've completed their work, they've done their lessons, and then they want to unwind, just to relax and they're not so violent. He collects money from the local shops, a briefcase. He doesn't say to them, where's the other mafia boss? He goes around the shops and says, if you don't give me this much money by this time next week, I'm going to smash your windows, I'm going to break your son's legs. This mafia boss, the second mafia boss, he collects money from the local stores, the local economy of the town he lives in, and he says to them, what you can afford. If you've had a good week, then put something decent in the briefcase. If you had a bad week, hasn't been so good, then put what you can afford. And he collects the money, not so he can buy a fancy car or dress in designer suits. He wears suits from Primark or fucking Debenhams, but he dresses smart, but he puts the money towards community gyms for kids that can't afford to do martial arts or kickboxing or boxing or karate or the kung fu. And he puts the money to pay for the trainers, the MMA trainers, to discipline children to defend themselves but never attack people, only fight for your life if your back's against the corner and don't go around bullying people just for their safety. And he puts the money towards community gyms just to, and kids who may not have role models or mentors, they have drug addicted parents or alcohol addicted parents, to send them to him so he can be the old man, he can be their father, to just give them some sort of mental guidance in life. So, and he also says to kids that just can't concentrate on their studies because they've got a lot going on at home, he sends them to the shops to do work experience, and he warns the shopkeepers, if any of you if there's any kiddie fiddlers around your ranks, you better fish them out, because if any of you touch these vulnerable teenagers who he sent to them to get into their work ethic, to stack shelves, to work on the tills, to be a cashier, so hopefully when they're 16 or they leave high school, they can go and work in a shopping centre complex just to get the work ethic installed into their heads, rather than doing fuckery to get money, like mugging people's mothers for their handbags or burglaring people. So this is the type of things the mafia boss is involved in, the second mafia boss, and he's very charming. someone who can help an old lady cross the road. So this is the second Mafia boss, but like I said, he's got rules and regulations. He doesn't want hybrid for the 16-year-olds or 17-year-olds because that can mutate and devastate their brain, but he allows ganja for those in the study centre who may be violent just to mellow them. In regards to the foiling injection, he's zero tolerance for foiling injection for the new generations of heroin. He lets the older generations who are too far gone off the foiling injection heroin to slowly phase out and disappear. But in regards to the new generation, he only allows laced ganja in a bit of cheesy zoops. But what he's doing with the money, he's getting the cash in hand, the business without the paperwork. He has to launder the money laundering, to make it clean so he can make it legitimate money. So the exchequer's on his case, the you could say the Cuthbert, Jason, cringeworthies from the Bash Street Kids, Weasels are on his case, and they're making his life difficult. They're saying that's illegal, you can't do that, that's against the law. And his argument, or his team, his mafia's argument, is if you lock him up, it's going to leave the streets to these hot-headed idiots who are going to be the kids' role models. Not the old G's, they're not older gangsters, they're older goofies. Now these older goofies are going to be fucking bad role models, hot-headed role models on these kids, and shit's just going to get worse. But there's police and courts, crown courts, and who want to throw the book at him because he money launders and he sells drugs, but regulated drugs. And what this second mafia boss does, he sees this other mafia, the hot-headed mafia boss, goes around beating people up, stealing people's chains, burglaries, pushing foil and injection and crack pipe methods on people's children. He's a pusher and he's just right nasty fucker, and someone who forces people's daughters or sons into prostitution, and he's a nasty piece of work. Now the second mafia boss, let's give him a name. Let's call him Dave Singh, yeah? He goes over to the other mafia boss and they have a meeting, and it turns sour and he kills him, he shoots him. He shoots the bully. According to the Crown Court, the laws and justice of the land of Great Britain, he's going to jail for 25 years because he's committed murder. They call it murder. You've ended a human's life, it's murder. You're going to jail. Whereas the local community, the locals going to be like, he's done the hood a favour. Parents going to be relieved, like, my son won't feel frightened going to the park with that fucker and that other fucker's crew going to the park, bullying, intimidating people who just want to play sports or walk around the park and have a chat with their friends. He's done the hood a favour. So he really should be granted clemency and a pardon by the courts, because if you lock him up for doing the hood a favour, it's going to leave the hood to be for the vulnerable teenagers and the youth. The people who are going to be leading them are going to be idiot hotheads who are going to set them a bad example, who are going to make the lives of the locals in the local town worse. Whereas if you grant him clemency and a pardon, he will have those hotheads under manners when his team, his mafias walking around the town. Because this is how it is. Mafias are given a bad name, but it depends what your mafias do. There's some nasty mafias out there, but there are some mafias who use violence as last resort, who are needed in local riffraff towns to keep riffraff under manners. But when you lock up the firm, the good firm, then it leaves the youth to be raised by idiots, and then shit gets worse. So I wanted this was on my chest that I needed to get off my chest. I believe the second mafia boss, the Dave Singh Mafia Montana, the Godfather, should be granted a pardon and granted clemency for taking out a dickhead, a hood bully, because it's done a hood a favour. So it's God Love 8 for Aria vs. T. I win this in 1984. Peace.